Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my October 2024 book haul. And this, let me tell you, is a massive book haul. I have 27 books to talk about. I have 20 books that I purchased and 7 books that were sent to me by publishers. And now I know that's a lot of books. And I always promise that I'm going to buy fewer books next month, but I think by this point we know that's not actually going to happen. This month I went to McKay's, which is my favorite bookstore, used bookstore, 3 times. I went one time on the way up to visit my sister and then my parents in Chattanooga. And then when I was up with my parents, I had to go to a place to get my glasses fixed for something. And I was right next to the McKay's in Knoxville. So I was like, well, I'm right here. I may as well go. And then when I get home, my mom's like, oh, I have this coupon, not coupon, but like store credit for McKay's that she was going to give me. And so on the way back home to Georgia, I went back to the Chattanooga McKay's and used that as well. So I went 3 times, so I got way too many books. But I think that this is a great book haul. I'm really excited. I have some duplicates. I have some replenishment books. I have some books that publishers sent me, books that authors have sent me, and I have just a lot to talk about. So let's start off with some of the books that I purchased, and I'm going to talk about the New Jedi Order Star Wars books I got. I got a copy of Unifying Force and Destiny's Way, which I'd read these books when I borrowed the whole series from my brother-in-law originally, but I've been collecting it because I wanted to have my own copies, and so this was just to complete the collection. I've already read these, so it's not like it's adding new books for me to read. And then I had a hardcover of Star by Star, but all the rest of the series I had in mass market, so I wanted it all to match. So now I have a mass market. I know this is going to be sacrilegious. I know I'm going to get rid of the hardcover for now because it's not going to fit, and just it'll be better for the channel. For my bookshelves. So I got these 3 books. I also got some new Star Wars books. My goal is to finish the Expanded Universe in the next year or so, and to do that I need to get the rest of the Expanded Universe books that I have not read, and so I got some of those. This was actually using the store credit when I had that. So I got Red Harvest by Joe Schreiber. I've already read Death Troopers, and I know this is kind of connected to it somehow. And then we have X-Wing Mercy Kill, which is the final X-Wing book and the last one that I haven't read yet. And then we have in the timeline-wise, the first Star Wars book in the EU, Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void, which I also need to read. And so I will get to these 3 sometime in the next year or so, and I'm very, very excited to read these. Very excited that they're part of my collection now. I also purchased some of the Jedi Apprentice series. So I have book 1 and book 17 of the series. And I read the first couple books in the series when I was 5 years old or 6 years old. I loved it. And I want to re-experience it eventually. And I never finished the series. So I'm slowly collecting them. And I found book 2, The Dark Rival, which was $1. I found book 4, Mark of the Crown, which was also $1. And then Deceptions, which was $2. And this is apparently a crossover between the Jedi Apprentice series and the Jedi Quest series, which is why it says special edition. It's not numbered. But these are all by Jude Watson, and I'm a fan of Jude Watson's writing, and I'm looking forward to getting to these eventually. These will go with once I have more in the series, I'll start reading this as well. And then I also got a duplicate copy of The Icarus Hunt by Timothy Zahn. Now, I have a mass market of this, which Tim signed, but what he did was he wrote this book back in '98, and then 20 years later, he decided to write more books connected to this. He wrote a 6-book, the Icarus Saga series, and this serves as kind of a prequel to it. But I had the whole Icarus Saga in hardcover, and then I had the prequel in mass market. So I got the hardcover for $3 at McKay's. It was great. This one was McKay's didn't know what they had in their hands. So I was very happy to buy the Icarus Hunt, which I actually like that. I think it's a Paul Ewell or Stephen Ewell cover. Yeah, it's a Paul Ewell cover. Very, very cool Paul Ewell cover. Let's see, I also got some Ken Follett books. I purchased Eye of the Needle, which this version is bent and warping and old and got stickers stuck on it. But I want to read this book. This is like one of the top books for him, according to most people. It's one of his best-selling books. And it's like a World War II thriller with the Nazis, apparently. And I was like, you know what? I want to give this one a try. And Brian Lee Durfee sings the praises of this one. Brian Lee Durfee does not sing the praises of Paper Money. He actually thinks this is one of his least favorite Ken Follett books. But everything that Brian Lee Durfee says he didn't like about this, about the high finance and stuff like that, I actually find really fascinating. So I was like, I might love this one. So I purchased this as well. It was not that expensive. It was like $2. So, and it's also really short as compared to most of Ken Follett's books. Speaking of long Ken Follett books, I also found for a pretty reasonable price, for less than $10, The Evening and the Morning, which is a prequel to Pillars of the Earth. I read Pillars of the Earth, top book of the year. I read World Without End, top book of the year. And I'm about to read Column of Fire, which is the third book in the series, and this is the prequel. So I will get to this eventually. And this one's actually only 870 pages, so it's like a solid 150 pages shorter than the other books. So that's a little exciting about it. I also purchased another Dresden File book. I purchased Proven Guilty. I had the next one after this, but I didn't have this one. This is the next one I need to read, and I found this for a pretty reasonable price at McKay's. So I'm excited to get to this one, and I love Jim Butcher's writing. I also purchased a John Ringo book, Under a Graveyard Sky. This is apparently the first book in the Black Tide Rising series, and I read a kind of standalone book in this universe called Mountain of Fire by Jason Cordova, and I loved it. Loved it. Top book of the year. So I was like, I want to try the first book in this universe, Under a Graveyard Sky. This is apparently a zombie series, and I really, if it's anything like the book I just read, I think it'll be a really entertaining story. I also purchased for really cheap Timothy Zahn's Triplet. I'm trying to collect all of Timothy Zahn's novels eventually, and this is one that I did not have, which very looking more fantasy type cover than he normally does. Usually he's a science, and it says it's science fiction, but usually he's much more, he has a very specific brand of science fiction, so for him to have one that looks more fantastical is really interesting. This is just a bizarre cover. So I'm excited to get to it. Old school Bane, that one. Then I got books 1 and 4 in, really 0 and 3 if you think about it, in Mike Stackpole's Dark Glory War series, which, let me see what it's actually called. The Dragon Crown Cycle. I always get it wrong. I have books 1 and 2, and then this is book 3, and this is like a prequel. And because the prequel came first, I wanted to read the prequel first, and I wanted to get them all in mass market. So now I do. I have the whole trilogy, plus the prequel, in mass market. So I'm excited to get to these. Mike Stackpole's one of my favorite authors. I really like the way he writes fantasy. And they had pretty nice covers. I also purchased a Star Trek book, only one that I purchased this month, and that was Rising Sun by S.D. Perry. This is part of the Deep Space Nine series. It is set after the tetralogy, or the quartet, the Mission Gamma series, and it is set before Unity, which I have Unity, and I've read Mission Gamma, but this was the next one I needed to read, so I'll get to this eventually. And I actually really like the Deep Space Nine books, despite the fact that I do not care for the show. And then there's another book that I've been looking for this book for years, and I finally found it at a local bookstore, and that is The Memory of Earth by Orson Scott Card. I have heard great things about this, and I've heard that this is actually a fantasy retelling of the Book of Mormon, and I just find that so interesting. And I didn't know it was part of a series, so I got it, and I was like, "Oh, this is part of a series." I bought it. The sticker for the book was right up here, so I was like, "Oh, that looks good." And this is the book I've been looking for, because I knew The Memory of Earth was that Book of Mormon fantasy retelling, and then I took I took the sticker off, and I was like, oh, it's a volume 1? There's apparently a 5-book series, so if I enjoy this, I will definitely get the rest of the books in this series. I also purchased a book by one of my favorite authors, and this is like I see a new book by him, I'm going to get it, and that is Path of the Hero by Dave Wolverton. This is a kind of science fiction fantasy book. Don't know really what it's about, but I like Dave Wolverton's writing style most of the time. Apparently, this is part of a duology that's connected, but it didn't seem very connected. So if you've read this book and the book Serpent Catch, let me know if it's actually connected or whether or not you read the first one or not. But anyway, I saw this and I'm interested in reading it. Next year, I intend to read a lot of comics and a lot of manga. I'm trying to break into that space. And I've already got the two bind-ups of One Piece. I got the volumes 1 through 3 and volumes 4 through 6. And so I'm only buying them if I find them for used at like $5 or under. And so I found One Piece East Blue, the volumes 7 through 9, for like $5 at my local used bookstore. And I was like, you know what? That's worth it. So if I see volumes 10 through 12 for cheap, I'll get that as well. So I now have, I think, enough manga and comics that I can do something like every month next year. So I'm really excited to get into that. It's going to be a big deal. I also purchased a nonfiction book, which this was like a crazy impulse buy. I don't know what I was thinking. But I purchased Kevin O'Leary's The Cold Hard Truth on Men, Women, and Money. I really like listening to Kevin O'Leary talk about business and finance, and this is something that I like listening to podcasts about. So I was like, this is a really short book and with pretty large print, so I should read it real fast. But it seems interesting. I don't know if I'll talk about it on the channel. I might not. I might just read it for fun, but we'll see how it goes. All right, now for the books that were sent to me by publishers. I have some from Simon & Schuster's gallery books. I have some from Bane books. I have some from some indie authors. So I'll start with the Simon & Schuster's gallery books. They sent me a copy of No Man's Land by Kirsten Beyer and Mike Johnson, which I actually have read this book and put a review out on the channel already. So go check it out. They also sent me the new book, Asylum, which is the new Strange New Worlds book by Una McCormick. I'm actually going to read this and review it on the channel, and I'm going to interview Una McCormick over on Literary Treks. So if you're a Star Trek fan and you want to hear my interview with her, go to the Literary Treks podcast. About the time, it'll be a little bit after this video comes out, but pretty soon. So I'm very excited to read this one. This was one of my new releases I wanted to read this year. Then also fellow booktuber Bibliotheory, also known as Aaron Payne. I should have said that backwards. Aaron Payne, also known as Bibliotheory, sent me his new book, Falling into Oblivion, which looks really interesting. This is not necessarily my most preferred genre, but I love Bibliotheory's content, and I want to give him a shot. So, and it's just a gorgeous cover. And so I'm really excited to read this. And this is a pretty short book, so it shouldn't be too long to read. I was also sent this month a self-pub book titled God's Country by J.T. Ringo, who is actually, this is a self-pub author that contacted me that I have a connection to. He, without giving too much away, is connected to my brother, and they worked at a kind of a Western-themed camp for kids like 10 or 12 years ago, more than that, like 12 or 14 years ago. Anyway, J.T. Ringo is now, much older now, and he's a writer, and so he wrote this Western novel, God's Country, and he asked me if I could take a copy of the book, and I'm going to try to get to it in 2025. And then for the book sent to me by Bane, a book I'm really excited about. I had an arc of it, but now I have the hardcover, is Freelancers of Neptune by Jacob Hollow, the first book in his Soul Blazers series. I love this cover, very beautiful, very well painted, looks really cool. So I'm excited to get to this one eventually. They also sent me one of the 1632 series, 1635, The Weaver's Code by posthumously by Eric Flint, and also Jody Lynn Nye. This is a very big Ring of Fire series that this is a part of, so there's a lot of books that this connects to. And then they also sent me Plan B by Sharon Lee and Steve Miller, which is part of their Leodin Universe series, and this is a reprinting of that. I really hope it is not the kind of Plan B I'm thinking of. But anyway, this is from that. Steve Miller also passed away earlier this year, so it's really sad, but Sharon Lee's still writing. So those are all the books that I purchased or were sent. I know it's huge. 27 books is a lot for a book haul. It was actually about to be more, and I cut it down. But if you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts. If you were excited to read any of these, and let me know what you've purchased and what you're about to read. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.